Hello. So Q&A style video today. Pretty busy currently, so we're just going to do a super easy format. These Q&As are very easy, so if you want to get one of your questions submitted, I would suggest just keeping your eyes out on my story and stuff. I normally, if I'm going to vlog or something like that, we'll just put the question box there. And at the same time, if you've got any content you find helpful or any questions, like just shoot them down into the comments in the YouTube thing as well. We'll just get cracking. First one I have here is how many minutes to plan AT middle zone. So I think they're asking when and how many minutes we should plan of kind of the mid threshold zone of training per week. To be honest, I would just encourage you to not really do it at all. The best way to, train is to look at training consistently, and if you're able to complete most of your sessions, ideally upwards of 90 realistically, for 90 days, then you're in a good place. If you're doing more than that, you can maybe look at manipulating it a bit more, but the best approach is to do most of your training UT2, low intensity, and then the other part of your training super high intensity. The only time that we really start to look at doing threshold training is when we've got when we've got athletes in a good position and we're happy with how everything's going, and we're looking for like kind of the margins, and just seeing and experimenting and looking at how threshold training affects their rowing. So again, just maybe start with a brief explanation of threshold mid-zone training. It's literally in the middle. So there's low intensity, medium intensity, which is threshold training as well, and then high intensity. And I believe polarized training, do most of it low, some of it high, and avoid that middle ground. And what a lot of people's low intensity is actually that mid zone. And the mid zone is just quite dangerous. You produce a lot of fatigue, a lot of bad hormones that don't actually get you faster. You burn through your carbohydrates really quickly. Just generally like a lot of work for not a lot of gain. So just generally, again, that was just for people that haven't really heard of that mid-zone stuff before. But in general, I would suggest just avoiding it and doing your training consistently and keeping it fairly simple, to be honest, until you get to a point where you feel like there's other areas you can improve. If you're at that point, I would say once every 2 weeks, and like possibly a total of kind of 30 minutes in that threshold zone. So maybe like start off at like 3x10, and then if you really want to push it and it's going okay, maybe go up to a 3x15 in that mid zone. That's generally around like your 30 rate 20 PB pace, or kind of 12 splits off of your 2K PB, to keep it simple without using percentage of watts. Make sure you eat carbs before and after, because you will burn through a lot. Make sure, if you're at this level, I would suggest tracking your data and looking at how you're responding, if it's actually working. But yeah, fairly advanced question, I guess, to start off the video. So maybe should have started off with the kind of more simple ones. But yeah, I guess we kind of got a big mix here. How is your social life rowing through your 20s? When my social life was good, my rowing wasn't. For me, so it's something I spoke about as well before, but I used to go out and party quite a lot. But not to say that's the only way you can socialize, but that was for me for a time. And the more I went out, the more fatigued I was for the next week's training, even if it was a weekend. And I think part of being an elite athlete, you really start to understand your body, and you listen to your body, and over time you start to notice the effects that not even just, when I got to the end of my career, I didn't just notice the effects of drinking and going out for a party or going into town on my next week or 2 weeks of training. I would notice the effects of just staying up late or missing my bedtime by like 2 hours. I noticed the effect of that and what that had on my training. So you can imagine how much worse it is when you go out every weekend. So for me, it was a question of what did I want to do more? Partying and socializing, you can still do it without if this is kind of what the question's referring to. I don't know if that's exactly what you're getting at, but yeah, for me, it was like that side of it's always going to be there, and I'm limited with my time and my peak in my 20s of what I can do. And ultimately, like, I just enjoyed rowing more. I enjoyed pushing myself hard more. I enjoyed that side of it so much more than just kind of the monotonous going out for the sake of it routine, which other people like enjoy, which is totally like great. Do what you like. That wasn't for me. You know, every weekend I'd maybe still go out every. There's pretty much a direct correlation with or an inverse correlation with how often I was going out and how well I was doing at rowing. So when I was at my best, I was maybe going out every 3 or 4 months. Again, if this is what you're referring to by social life, I think it's a bit easier to socialize when it's just kind of casual, going to the movies or whatever, dinner. But yeah, it was, I don't like using the word sacrifice. I chose to do it. I enjoyed doing it. I enjoyed committing myself fully to training. Pauline, my now wife, we would do things, but the weekends were pretty much, once I finished training on Saturday afternoon, I was wrecked, lied in bed all day. And then Sunday we would do some easy stuff, like, I don't know, go for like a walk, but normally I had to recover. So we would do the odd things like go out for dinner. But a lot of our socializing was just in the flat and stuff. But yeah, I don't know if that's a big enough an example. Like, you're gonna, depending on how far you want to take your rowing, you can get to really good levels and still, again, socialize every weekend and stuff. If by socializing you mean going out and partying, I think you can certainly do it. If your socializing is just meeting up and being casual, most of my friends as well, like a lot of them I met through rowing as well. So you socialize through that. Like, the most socializing I ever did was in rowing, having a normal job and or a normal student life and going out on the weekends. Like, you're probably going to socialize less than when you're actually rowing, and bond less probably as well. But yeah, next question. How to deal with the negative feeling of you'll never get there, low points. How to deal with that negative feeling of you'll never get there. I think that's being quite hard on yourself to start off with, obviously. But it's quite, it can be quite a negative thing. Yeah, obviously, as you asked in the question. I think it's important to recognize that stuff's always going to be there, and you're probably always going to be hard on yourself. And a lot of these mindset things is not immediately trying to fight them and wish that they weren't there and think that in order to get to your full potential, that it's never going to be there. Like, accept first off that these sort of things are going to come. And I think it's always about getting yourself into a state of calmness so that you can move forward from it. So rather than trying to fight these negative emotions, I think the first step is accepting that they're going to be there, and then just practicing and rehearsing how you're going to respond to that, and think about what's the next step and what's going to get you forward. And a lot of this overwhelming negativity can come from looking at exactly where you want to be and where you are now, and seeing that gap and thinking, how am I going to jump this in one go? And that's quite stress inducing. So try and shift away from that and just think, right, what's one step I can make going forward? How can I train a bit more consistently? How can I recover better? How can I improve my sleep by 5%? These little steps, and just focus on improving that and try to recognize the progress that you can make in that is really what will get you a bit of confidence and get you moving forward. And even as you get better at that, you're still going to have those negative voices telling you that maybe you're not going to make it, whatever making it is for you. But it's something to practice, and it's a skill to build about just what's in front of me, what's the next session, what's tomorrow's training looking like, what's the objective of this week, how can I get myself moving towards that. My screensaver just came on here, so the lighting changed. yeah, that's kind of a summary of general mindset stuff as well. You know, it's the same with racing nerves. When you're going up to the start line, you got all those crazy voices in your head saying, there's no way, I feel so tired, oh, this is so windy, or, you know, that crew beat us last time. It's the same thing, you know, you're dealing with these negative voices in our primitive brain that just wants to tell us these things that aren't necessarily what we want. But yeah, hope that makes sense. Is there a point where you become strong enough, quote unquote, strong enough, and you stop lifting? The immediate example that springs to mind, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but was Sam Mayer. And he would squat like 180 kilos quite easily for like reps. And he basically just didn't need to do weights. As soon as he started doing weights, he said he put on too much muscle. So if you're squatting 180 kilos for reps, then you're probably strong enough to answer your question. With the GB team, we kind of had the benchmarks, which I believe was 100 kilo for heavyweight men. It was 100 kilo bench press, 100 kilo. I think it might have been for a couple reps. I don't know how many reps this was, maybe one rep. 100 kilo bench, 100 kilo bench pull. I think back squats was like 120 for a couple reps or a few reps. And then I think power cleans, we wanted to get up to like 100 or something. If you can hit that, that's good. The main thing about strength training and weight training is mobility and injury prevention, and like strength for whatever technical points you're trying to work on. And certainly that's our approach is how can we find out what your weaknesses are in your rowing stroke, or what your niggles that you're having, or is there anything from your desk job that is affecting you when you go rowing, and can we give you some strength work in the gym to improve that? Then it's strength training, then it's about power. But generally, unless you're ridiculously strong, I would say keep getting stronger. If you're the strongest person in your crew, maybe more naturally, and you come into the crew, just because you're squatting more than everybody doesn't mean that I'm saying squatting for an example here, it doesn't mean that adding 20 kilos to your squat is not going to make you faster. Like, that still will make you faster. You're still going to improve your overall peak force, and then your watts will be a smaller percentage of that, and that will make you more efficient. You'll able to increase your sort of race pace watts on top of that. So to be honest, unless you're squatting lifting a ridiculous amount of weights, I would say keep lifting. It's good for mobility and injury prevention, and then also just getting faster. And it's just like it's a good variation from training as well. It's been shown to improve endurance, all endurance sports. So just keep doing it generally. C2 static versus C2 slides versus RP3. Effects on training if worth upgrading. So I think the main benefit of sort of Concept 2 slides is variation in your training and technically challenging yourself. And actually the main one I should say is injury prevention. So if you think about it, just to explain this briefly, if you think about sliding up and down the slide and moving your weight, that requires energy. So if you weren't holding the handle and you were just like on that machine and you just said, and I said, right, slide forward and then slide back, you're having to move your weight up and down the slide. And yeah, it's your energy. That's a very small amount of energy, but it's still your energy that is moving your body. So it requires a slight amount of energy from yourself to move your body weight, even when you don't have a handle. So when you're on slides or when you're on the RP3, you're sitting still and it's the machine and the elasticity of the machine or whatever it is in it, I don't fully understand it, that moves towards you. So you save a little bit of energy and you reduce a bit of that force and that change of direction through your body, and that can just help reduce injury risk a little bit, which is a great thing. The risk I've seen with them is that because as you get closer to the catch, there's the tension on the elasticity is increasing. So the temptation is to lose that control and kind of go in and out like that, and just kind of have that in and out sort of motion at the catch, which can increase like bad habits and reduce the amount of control you have going into the catch. So that's something I think to be conscious of when you're doing these sort of slides and stuff. But RP3s are great. I'm going to be full transparency. I've literally never rowed. I've taken like 3 strokes on one, so I'm not in a complete position to give my thoughts on it. I've heard great things. A couple of the athletes I coach love them, and like that quantifiable feedback on the RP3. Concept 2 slides, you're not really getting that. So, but the RP3 is far more fragile and they break more. Is the what I've heard. Whether that's fair or not, I don't know. But in general, a Concept 2 erg is a fantastic machine for rowing. I think probably one of the best investments you'll make in your rowing. So it would probably be, stroke coaches are really good upgrades. If you're a rower, you're not just on land. Stroke coaches are great upgrades. Heart rate monitors. But yeah, slides, if it's something that excites you, it's going to reduce your injury risk, and you're careful to not ruin your technique, then go for it. But yeah, next one. Next tattoo idea. I am an obsessive person and I get carried away a little bit, and I would happily go to a tattoo artist and just give them all my savings and just say tattoo everywhere on me. But luckily Pauline's holding me back a little bit as well, actually, which is good for sure. But my next one, I want to go to a guy called Rob Blake. If I can be bothered editing this and putting up his style, he's down in Brighton. I want to go and get some off of him, do a day with him, and maybe get a kind of few pieces. He just kind of got this dark sort of aesthetic, I guess, but it's quite expressive as well. I don't know what it is about it. That's a cool thing. I'm not much of an art guy, I would say, but there's something about some tattoo artists that you just kind of look at it and you're kind of intrigued a little bit, and it gets you thinking, and there's no reason behind it. I just quite like the art that he does. There's another guy, Marcus, who's in Glasgow. I quite like his stuff as well. I'm going to go back and get a few. I'm going to get the skull lasered off. I don't like it. I like American traditional style, and I just don't like this style. It just wasn't what I was after, and to be honest, it's a good experience. Like, part of the tattoo is the experience when you go to get it. And when I went to get the tattoo off this guy in Stirling, he was just bad vibes. I just didn't really like him, to be honest. But all the other ones I've gotten from people, they've been so friendly, so chatty, so like not judgmental or anything like that, just really welcoming. And it was such a positive experience. Tattoos are like chapters in your life. You remember where you were when you got them, what was going on in your life when you got them, and also you remember the person that did it as well. So there's kind of that positive connection as well, sharing that with the artist, which I quite like. So that's why I'm going to get the skull lasered off, and it's a good spot as well. I want to have a good tattoo there that I like. But yeah, I mean, I've only got like 15 or something, and I already want to get one lasered off, so it's probably a good thing that I'm going slow on these. But yeah, okay, next one. What shoes should I wear for ergs? Flat-soled shoes. So actually, some Vans. If you don't want any like cushion, unless you've got some sort of orthopedics or something. I don't know, is that the right word? You don't want, with running, your force, the shoes are designed to absorb force so that it doesn't damage your skeleton. With rowing, you want your force going into moving the fan on the erg, and you want it to, obviously, I suppose you wouldn't have this problem in the boat, but you want your force to be going into the foot plate. So thin shoes, literally anything. You can go into a supermarket and get those sort of plimsoll shoes if you want. They're super thin if you want a cheap solution. Any sort of skateboarding shoe, those basic Nike kind of fashion ones, I guess. You just don't want thick soles unless you like need them. You've been prescribed them by your physio or whatever. Weights shoes are fine as well, but to be honest, one thing I like to just remove variables when I was training, and I didn't want a pair of weight shoes to be the reason that like I was going into a test and say I lost them, that like, oh right, okay, I'm indifferent. I've not got my erg shoes. Like, that's why I rode barefoot. Remove variables. remove the reliance on things that don't really matter. So I erg barefoot because, again, obviously you've not got any absorption. So when you go barefoot for the first time, you're going to get blisters on the back of your heels for a couple of weeks. But then after, like anything, it builds up a callus. If you're sweating quite a lot, you might start to slip your heel out. So what I did, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I'm going to try and zoom in here. There we go. And then the thing's just... so this bit of the shoe thing, I would stick a sock through there. I'm trying to think. I've got some cycling shorts here. I would stick this sock through there like that, and that bit of cloth kind of just hanging there on the back of the shoe, that would act as kind of a cloth and would absorb any moisture and just give me a bit more grip. But those are the kind of only issues when you'd be rowing barefoot. I need to zoom out. Oops, sorry. But yeah, I would do that. Flat soles, weight shoes, or barefoot. No running shoes. Almost there. Training competitively with injuries. So I've done a whole nother video on this. I had a really bad back injury that I was out of the sport for about 18 months realistically. And then coming back from that took me quite a long time. You need to become very in tune with your body and what your body is telling you. And you need to know better than a coach, better than a physio. You need to be in charge. When you're recovering from a back injury, I keep saying back injury because that's the one I had that was really bad. Any injury, you need to view yourself temporarily, not as a rower, but as a back fixer or a knee fixer or an injury fixer, and get yourself back. I don't want to give any advice that's when to push through and when not to. That's your decision, and you need to make sure that it's safe for you to do that. There's going to be some element of niggles and pain and minor injuries no matter what in your rowing journey. So you kind of have to accept that, but I'm certainly not advising you to push through things. But tips on how to train with that and race competitively. Do a lot of mileage on the bike if it's not your knees. If you've got knee problems, you are going to be in trouble for cross training. Ski ergs work a little bit, but to use them solely as a cross trainer is not the best. I'm not going to lie. Do as much land work volume on the bike as possible. Make sure you get a lot of sleep. That's one of the strongest correlations with injuries in sport is lack of sleep. So get enough sleep, go to bed early. You should be waking up and hearing your alarm and being okay with it. And if you're waking up hearing your alarm and thinking, shit, I'm not rested, I want more sleep, then you need to go to bed earlier. That's a massive thing. Being thorough with your mobility and consistent. And even when the hard part, when you have an injury, you can be very motivated to do mobility work. But as your injury gets better, you have less of a reason to do the mobility work or the activation work. So staying super consistent with your mobility and activation work before and after your training, figuring out what the problems of your injury is, what caused it, coming up with a plan to fix that. Again, prioritizing that really highly. I would say you want to prioritize high intensity in the boat, number one, and then the second priority would be low intensity in the boat, and then the third priority, high intensity on the erg, fourth priority, low intensity on the erg. So kind of work your way up through that if you're able to do it, and just be very consistent with your sleep and your nutrition. Even things like having higher antioxidant foods like vegetables and dark fruits, dark vegetables. They reduce inflammation. They can help you recover. Staying hydrated, staying fueled for your sessions, that can help you recover and deal with it. You just want to start to build up your body's ability to recover from these things. But sleep is probably the most underlooked area of all recovery, but also for injuries. So yeah, that's quite a lot. Go and check out the pretty much all these things I'm talking about. Type in Row Faster series, just go have a look through them. There's one on injuries, and go check them out. But yeah, probably something I should do as well. Smash that like button, hit subscribe. If you want to support the channel, because yeah, we're done. And if you want to be a part of helping this, if it's been helpful for you and you want to be a part of helping it get to other people, then the algorithm stuff helps. But anyways, I'll keep doing it. I don't care if you like or subscribe. I'll keep doing it. And yeah, bye. Let me know, comment, whatever, your thoughts. If anything's helpful, if you got any more questions, let me know. Right, bye. Cheers.